So today I'm going to show you how to make a super simple multi-seed sourdough loaf. Nothing complicated. We're going to add the seeds at the point of mixing the dough, and we're just going to bump the hydration up just a touch, just to balance out the addition of those seeds. Now, if you've been following the channel for a while, you're going to find this recipe just a little bit familiar. I've actually tweaked my everyday sourdough recipe for this one, and I'm going to be adding 270 grams of room temperature water to my bowl. Now, this is the first kind of little tweak. I've bumped the hydration up just slightly to 75% for this recipe, and that's going to balance the addition of the seeds. I'm going to follow this up with 97 grams of sourdough starter. Now, I fed this last night at 100% hydration, and if you want to know a bit more about the feeding routine, I'll link to a video in the card above and at the end of the video. So I'll give this a quick stir just to dissolve the starter a little bit. It doesn't need to be completely dissolved. And then I'm going to go straight in with 9 grams of sea salt, another quick stir, and here's the second little tweak. I'm going to be adding 318 grams of strong white bread flour, but I'm also going to be adding some rye flour. Now, I've had a lot of questions about these mills in the background, so today I'm going to be using the Como mill to actually mill my rye flour. You'll find a link in the video description for the one I'm using, but I want to be clear here, I'm right at the beginning of my journey. I know nothing about home milling at all, so this is going to be some fun, that's for sure. Now, for this specific recipe, I'm going to mill the flour quite fine. I'm not going to go into detail about the process because, quite frankly, I'm still learning the process and getting used to using these mills. But what I will be doing is documenting my journey through my community email and videos. So if you're into milling flour and you want to keep up to date and possibly sharing some of my glory and pain, then you'll find a link in the video description where you can subscribe. So here's a case in point that will probably demonstrate where I'm at on my current milling journey. Can you see that dust cloud that's coming off of the rye as I mill it? My gut instinct is telling me that that grain is too dry, but I could be completely wrong. It really is just a gut instinct to that stage. But I am going to be talking to some people who are going to help me out along my journey, and I'm going to share that knowledge with you as I go along. Now, I've got some grains coming over from the UK, and I've struggled to find grains here in Athens, but if anybody knows where I can get them here in Greece, then do let me know in the comments. So in we go with 55 grams of the rye flour, but you could quite happily swap this out and use a whole wheat flour instead. And this is kind of the final tweak to my normal everyday dough. We're going to add the seeds, and I'm adding 55 grams of mixed seeds. Now, I'm using a mixture of nigella, sesame, golden and brown flaxseed, pumpkin and sunflower. Now, this bit's completely up to you, but I prefer to run a knife through those larger seeds because I prefer an evenish size throughout. Everything is then brought together with a spoon, and then I use a wet hand to finish bringing the dough together. I'm going to cover this, I'm going to leave it out at room temperature on my worktop for 30 minutes. Now, this is actually overrun. It's been about 45 minutes, but I don't stress. If the time overruns a touch, it's fine. As long as the dough's okay, everything's going to be just fine. So this is going to be the first of 3 sessions where I'm going to try and build some strength into the dough. But as you can see at this stage, this dough is completely different to my normal everyday sourdough. By the way, I'll link to that in the video card above and on the end screen of this video. Now, normally my dough would have built some strength by this time, but as you can see, this is just falling apart. No stress, I'm just going to ball it up, pop it back in the bowl, and I'm going to let time work its magic. So here we are about 45 minutes later. I'm going to give this a quick stretch out on the countertop so you can see how the dough's changed all on its own during that rest. And even without playing with or manipulating the dough, and with the addition of those seeds, we've still built strength, and the dough has a silky texture, a touch tacky but not sticky. Really nice to handle. So I'll get this covered up now, ready for another rest. Here we are 45 minutes later. The dough's got a lot more strength now, and it's actually starting to recoil back on itself. Now, considering that I've used some rye flour in this dough and I've added the seeds, I'm a touch surprised at just how well this dough handles. But now it's time to cover it. It's going to bulk ferment at room temperature, which today in my kitchen is 18 degrees Celsius or 64 degrees Fahrenheit. So this has been bulk fermenting for 5 hours, and I'm going to roll this dough in a seed mix. I think it's going to give it some textural contrast to the loaf, and the toasted seeds will taste amazing. So after giving the dough a light mist with water and turning it out, I'm going to fold the edges of the dough over and roll it up. I'm going to tidy those ends up as I go and then pinch the seam closed. Now the addition of seeds in this dough just stiffens the dough slightly. It makes it easy to handle, but the dough isn't dry, it's still moist and tacky. So the seeds are going to stick easily to the dough and the basket won't need any flour. The seeds are going to act as a moisture barrier, stopping the dough from sticking to the basket. And into the basket we go, seam side up, and this is going to sit out for an hour or so on the worktop uncovered. And then it's straight into the fridge for an uncovered overnight prove. So it's the next day and it's time to bake. Now I've preheated my oven and my baking stone to 220 degrees Celsius or 430 degrees Fahrenheit. Now when you turn this dough out onto the peel, you can actually feel that it's a little stiffer, it's a touch more rigid from the addition of those seeds. And here I'm just gently brushing off some excess flour that was left in the banneton from a previous bake. But remember at the beginning of this video when I ran my knife through those larger seeds, just breaking them up a bit, that's really going to help with the scoring process. The blade's going to find an easier path through the dough without getting snagged on those larger seeds. And then this is going to go straight into the oven. It's going to bake covered with the pot for the first 20 minutes. And then it's going to bake uncovered for the final 20 minutes. And all of that's going to happen at 220 degrees Celsius or 430 degrees Fahrenheit. Now as this loaf bakes, the seeds roast on the outside and the taste changes. So for me, I definitely don't like to overbake these seeded loaves. The bread smells awesome. We've only added 55 grams of rye flour, but you get these really earthy notes from this loaf and the use of that rye. It's a cracking little loaf that begs you to slice into it. The crumb is soft, it smells a little beery, at least for me anyway. This is what you want for your doorstep farmhouse cheese and pickle sandwich, and of course that pint. Now if you want to see a video on soaking the seeds and then incorporating them into the dough during the stretching and folding, then do let me know. But in the meantime, click here to watch the video on the starter and my everyday sourdough that I mentioned earlier in the video. And if you want to come along on that milling journey, don't forget to subscribe to the email. A huge thank you for watching. I'll see you again very soon. Stay tuned.